I want to talk about something really important that Tad Strummer brought up in his video this morning and why it's so important to have a historian's perspective in what is happening now. A big portion of the reason I started following Tad way back when is because I think he has such a good balance of like, here are the lessons that we know from history. And he has a really good balance of like, all hope is not lost, y'all, but also we cannot minimize the harm that is being done and pretend that this will just all go away on its own. We actually know that it's a long slog and a lot of work to stop fascism. And so much of his perspective resonates with my own opinions about what's happening, which is that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And the amount of organization and sustained strategic resistance that we all have to engage in now and will have to engage in for quite a while yet is probably far more extensive than I think a lot of Americans are prepared for. Back in like February, I think I made a video where I said that like, I don't think y'all understand the level of sacrifice you're going to be asked to make in order to stop fascism. And people did not, I got more angry comments on that video than almost anything I have made this year. I would hope by now in August, people's perspective has shifted a little bit. They understand that this is a long haul project. They understand the level of commitment and work that it is going to take to stop what's happening now. But a big part of why I follow Tad and also Heather Cox Richardson is because I want that historian's perspective, right? Like I'm a scientist by training. My wheelhouses are like botany, permaculture, design, and also like non-authoritarian parenting. And also education. But I'm not a historian. The sum of the history classes I took in college are like medieval and Renaissance European history and the Jewish tradition. So it's so important for us to have the perspective of a historian because history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but we would be foolish not to see what has happened in the past and let that inform the decisions that we make now. Okay, I realize that was a 2-minute long introduction, but Tad said something this morning about specifically the National Guard troops that are being called up from other states and sent into Washington, D.C. And I think his point is so important. He said he's really worried about that move more than kind of any other move that has been made thus far. According to The Hill, 1,000 additional National Guard members have been called up from red states with Republican governors. They aren't all there yet, but they've been called up and they're on their way. They will join the approximately 800 DC area National Guard members. And before I get into which states have called up Guard members to send to DC, I just want to remind y'all, this is very concerning, but 1,800 National Guard members are not occupying a city of more than 750,000. This is a spectacle. This is meant to communicate something. It's meant to intimidate. There is intention behind it. There is a psychological game at play here. So the first state is Louisiana, and their governor, Jeff Landry, is sending 135 members of their National Guard. Governor Tate Reeves of Mississippi is sending 200 soldiers. Governor Bill Lee of Tennessee is sending 160. Governor Patrick Morrisey of West Virginia is sending somewhere between 300 and 400 skilled personnel. He will also be sending what is called mission essential equipment. Governor Mike DeWine of my old state of Ohio, where I went to high school, will be sending 150. Ohio was purple when I lived there. It is now, I saw that Vivek Ramaswamy is going to run for governor. You know, the guy who was supposed to run, the billionaire who was supposed to run Doge with Elon Musk and quit or got pushed out very quickly. I mean, we know Ohio is bad. They elected J.D. Vance, but also the wheat and corn growers of Ohio just endorsed Ramaswamy. It's not a good scene in Ohio. So unsurprisingly, the very red state of Ohio is sending 150 Guard members. And lastly, South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster is sending 200 South Carolina Guards members. Now, notably, Governor Scott of Vermont refused to send Guard members. So did you notice, with the exception of Ohio, where all of those states are located? And this is where I think Tad's historical perspective is so important, and why it's really important to understand why so many Black creators are consistently saying the reason we are in this position is because of the failure of Reconstruction after the Civil War, the failure for there to be accountability and justice and a comprehensive rebuilding of this country in the wake of the Civil War. Tad made the really excellent point that West Virginia, Tennessee, South Carolina, Louisiana, those are all very red states with a lot of white members of their National Guard who live in rural areas. They tend to run very conservative, and their states have a long history of systemic racism. And they are being sent to Washington, D.C., a majority Black city with very progressive values. Folks in these red states have believed, I get comments on my YouTube all the time from conservatives who have never been to D.C., and they really believe the rhetoric that they're hearing from the Trump regime, that it's a lawless wasteland full of violent urban youths. Right, which is just code for Black kids. And they really think that Trump and the National Guard are coming in to restore order. And yeah, I've said it before, we live in an America where there's two separate realities. We do not have a shared reality in this country. There are those of us that I would like to say are informed, who understand what's going on. And then there are folks who are heavily propagandized. They are not exposed to the same information you are. They are being fed a steady stream of propaganda from the right and have been for likely their entire lives and probably for multiple generations. After all, the Heritage Foundation, Fox News, the far right, they've played the long game when Democrats really haven't. That indoctrination has been going on for a long, long time. And so these folks have an entirely different worldview imbued with hundreds of years of racism in the South. And Tad's whole point was the dynamic that is being set up now, where 1,000 additional National Guard members are being sent in, mostly white, from very red communities that were from the South, are being sent into a progressive Black community. It's absolutely meant to be incendiary. It is absolutely meant to spark a not good scene so that Trump can justify sweeping in with even more crackdowns. And I think that Tad and others are completely right to sound the alarm. History doesn't repeat itself, but the same dynamics that were in play during and after the Civil War are still in play in much of the country. And of course, the white supremacists, the Christo-fascists running this country are not only going to stoke that dynamic, they're going to harness it to try and achieve their ends. Should we be concerned? Yes. Is this the end of everything? No. Would we do well to understand what the regime is hoping to accomplish? What kind of situation they are trying to provoke? And then understanding that we're not going to give them that? Yes, absolutely. I know I talked about this before in regards to LA, but one of the reasons that everything Trump tried to do in LA really fizzled was because Californians did not give him what he wanted. He wanted there to be people he wanted like a Rodney King riot situation, right? So that he could justify, he could say, look at these violent urban people, and I am going to come in and restore order, and I'm going to be allowed to sweep in with a military takeover wherever I want, trample on the local authorities, trample on everybody's rights. And folks in Los Angeles, they didn't take the bait. So it fizzled for him. He didn't get the reaction he was hoping for. And so he was not successful in carrying out his plans there. And notice again, all the Marines are gone. Almost all of the National Guard are gone from California. And so I think it's really important to understand what's happening right now in DC. Trump didn't get the reaction he wanted with the first 800 folks he sent in. They're just standing around, right? Tourist areas, and they're twiddling their thumbs. So now he's going to call in folks who are from rural communities in the Deep South, and he's hoping to stoke racial tensions. Or maybe not Trump, because he's not that sophisticated, but the folks who are pulling the strings behind him. They are hoping to stoke racial tensions. They're trying to incite violence in DC so that they can say, look, see, we need to come in and restore law and order. Authoritarians always manufacture a crisis so that they can come in and say, we are needed to fix this. We need to take away some of your rights so we can fix this crisis that we made. And that's how they advance themselves. So we can't give them that. Understanding the lessons of history are really important. Understanding the dynamics that are still in play right now. Understanding how not to take the bait and not play into Trump's hand. Maintaining a level head and being strategic in response to what he's trying to do. Crucially important right now.